This one.
Right, hello everyone. Hello and a very warm welcome. Just before we start today, I was saying to Sue and Michelle as we were setting up the room, blimey, I hope you get some people turning up. It's going to be really embarrassing. I feel like I'm having a party and no one's going to come. So it's amazing that it's in Canary Wharf standing room only. And we've got people all over the country watching on YouTube. So hello, thank you for joining us. And Scotland and Ireland as well. So it's brilliant, a real Trinity Mirror effort today. And I guess for the first time ever, it shows how far we've come. I feel happy and confident to say, Happy International Women's Day. Woo! And this time last year, I definitely would have felt embarrassed. And I think that shows the huge change and the huge momentum that's happening culturally and across the society. And I'm so pleased that at Trinity Mirror, we're taking advantage of that and looking to build some momentum here as well. I want to say a special thank you to those of you that are here that felt a bit uncomfortable about coming. We know that for some people, you know, a women's network isn't the kind of thing that you feel is for you. And we know that some people felt, because of their colleagues, that they didn't feel comfortable to show their face here. I'm hoping that you're watching on YouTube at least, and I hope together we can start to change some of those perceptions that we might find around this whole issue about gender equality. Thank you to those people that have volunteered to help with the network. We thought we might get about 12 people. We're up to 95 or something. So bear with us, it's taking a bit longer for us to sort out how we operate from this point forward. But again, a real sense of people from all over Trinity Mirror joining in and getting behind this initiative. We're on slide.do, so if you've got questions, log on to that. The meeting number is 8110?
8100.
8100, so please put your questions there. It's totally anonymous and you can like and comment on things that other people are posting. If you are watching from around the country, if you wouldn't mind just saying where you are, just so we get that sense of all of Trinity Mirror coming together, that would be great. And I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the main meat of this session is that, of course, gender is only one of the diversity issues that Trinity Mirror needs to address. We very much hope that this is the first of many networks that's set up. If there are other ones that you're interested in helping with, please put your name forward. Julia Warren, our HR director, is really keen to hear from you, and she's been incredibly supportive in helping us get this women's network up and running, Women Together. So I know that she'll support you. Or if you want to talk to me or Alison or Kerry, then you're welcome to, and we can tell you how we sort of went about thinking about this one. On the note of other networks, obviously lots of diversity and equality and accessibility and inclusivity issues for us to tackle. I guess the one that we've probably all had the piss ripped out of us is what about the men? Where's the men's network? So I was delighted to see this in the Evening Standard yesterday. If anyone needs a retort post this session. Aisha here said it's International Women's Day, and before some smart ass says anything about International Men's Day, that's what happens the other 364 days of the year. So there's something for you to say when you get back to your desks. So a brief word now from Alison, Kerry and Alison, who are also kind of on the set-up steering group, just about why they've got involved with this particular network.
Yeah, do you want to stand
Yep.
up? Yeah, okay. I suppose, put simply, you know, I've obviously had a great career at Trinity Mirror. I love working here. I've always been surrounded by people I really enjoy working with. However, I think everyone should have the opportunity, quite simply, to reach their full potential. I think I've been very lucky to have got where I've done. Really lucky, primarily because I've been very lucky in terms of like support with my childcare. I've had children. I've been very lucky with having reasonable bosses. But my point is, everyone should have the same opportunity. You shouldn't have to be lucky. You should be able to get where you want to be on merit and hard work. And that's sort of quite a straightforward thing, and I think everybody would think that. But what people perhaps don't see is the invisible boundaries that can be there for women that I think men don't know about. And I think there's a very interesting thing is if you keep this as in your head, is that privilege is invisible to those that have it, and I think so all the men that do say to you, but oh come on, you know, what's your problem? If you're in a position of privilege, you really don't see that you've got it. So that was my thing. And also I kind of have, I don't, you know, there's no point in me, and I've had, you know, I'm delighted in the last week to have, you know, got the job that I've now got, but there's absolutely no point in me getting that job if I don't do something else to try and make it better for the people that come after.
Kerry, so we're just on a bit closer to here so that we pick it up for the film.
Okay, so the reason I'm involved in it is essentially what Alison said, but I've got two sort of short anecdotes that encapsulate why. One, so a few years back I was deputy editor of the Western Mail in Cardiff, and I'm in the editor's office. He's a man, obviously, and we have a male guest comes in, a very important male guest, and the editor, Alan, turns to the male guest and said, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And the male guest turned to me and said, "That would be lovely." At which point I said, "My name's Kerry Gould, I'm the deputy editor," and I left, and he made his own tea. I think Alan made his own. So that's an example of what Alison's talking about, that sort of subconscious, unconscious bias, and you know, until I doubt Lloyd you've ever been asked to make the tea, or assumed that you would make the tea if Alison is in the room or in another room. So it's that, and then also, on my own behalf. So last week I was reading a story about the bus driver who did amazing driving and avoided the crash. And the image that I had in my head immediately was that she was a man. So I'm as guilty of it as everyone else is. And I think while we still have that in our society, that's why things like Women Network are they're for us to learn and to call ourselves out, and also to call out the mansplaining as well. So that's.
This is really nerve-wracking. Hello, I'm the other Alison. And the reason I'm involved is because I kind of thought, if not me, then who? Who is going to come forward and, you know, help amplify our voices on this? I'm really lucky. I've had very supportive male bosses through my career, but I never had a female senior manager when I was a reporter coming through. I never had that kind of mentor. I had a female HR director, and that's the only one I actually remember at director level. So I'm so grateful that you're all here. I'm so grateful that we have this, and I'm really positive and excited about what we can do. And it's not just a women's network, actually. I think it's more than that. It's a people's network, but it's kind of women who are taking it forward with support from a lot of our male colleagues, and I'm grateful to you too. And that's really all I want to say.
Thank you. And here's a few of the other people that are joining us via YouTube today. Oh, Sue, where's that other video? Right, we'll come back to that. So we're going to... I'm now totally confused, I'll be very honest. Sue's down there looking like she's maybe sorting it out, or I'll carry on. So can I ask you all to find someone in the room that you don't know that well, or you don't know at all, and this is a 2-minute thing. I want you to tell them the proudest thing, your proudest achievement in the workplace, and to hear what theirs is. It's literally 2 minutes, you're going to have to be quick. So find someone you don't know, you might need to move, don't cheat, do it to the person next to you.
So that one? So it is that one? Which one? So it is there. Oh, it is there. I want it to play auto. Can we just start it next? I like to fit it in the way. Just want to get onto it though, to just make sure that it's going to auto play. Automatically.
You just play it when we come back now and then go straight to the next one.
So when it clicks on, it's going to play. I'm here. That's right,
but, yeah, no, but then it would have proved actually, because I would have gone, I haven't got a bloody clue. I think it's important to come. I said, can I come? That's a thousand. Can I? It is. Not only is it the right thing, it's the right thing for us to do for our business, as well as it just being morally right. It makes sense. I wrote some words, a few words for Alison. I don't know whether those.
Okay, ladies and the gentlemen in the room, your time is up. Thank you. Right, can I have some quiet, please? Thank you very much. I want to now have my fingers crossed that we've sorted the technology, and we're now going to hear from some voices from around Trinity Mirror.
Hello there, I'm Susan Lee, I'm the print editor of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Anne Gripper, I'm the executive editor at Mirror Online.
Karen Fleeting, head of audience engagement at Trinity Mirror Regionals.
Mary Loshkin, and I'm the head of product for our established products group.
I'm Linda Moyo, I'm the head of What's On for Trinity Mirror Regionals.
I'm Anna James, I'm regional head of digital for Midlands.
I'm Emma Russell and I'm HR Business Partner.
The Women's Network is important because I think in order for a company to be able to address any imbalances, they need to first identify that there is a problem in the first place.
If we want to attract a broad audience to our products, then we need the decision makers to be representative of that audience.
I believe there are brilliant opportunities for women in the business and we can help more of our talent unlock them.
I would hope that the Women's Network will achieve a stronger voice for women, whether you are in the highest management or you're just coming in at the very lowest rung.
I'd like to see some more transparency about salaries and about the gender pay gap.
And also that women don't have to make a choice between family or career.
I hope that it will empower and enable women across Trinity Mirror to fulfil their potential and realise their professional ambitions.
The network will hopefully be an outlet for people to be open and honest about what it's like working for Trinity Mirror and share whatever obstacles they might have encountered.
We have brilliant women in this company and together we can make the company stronger.
I'm very pleased to be taking part, it's long overdue, and let's make some change.
So thank you to everyone who contributed to that video, and I guess just that sense of reminder, it's all of us feeling this and wanting to do something different. Why I'm personally quite passionate about this issue is I definitely was one of those people that had my head in the sand a few years ago. I'm quite embarrassed when I look back, and I thought that women just needed to prove themselves, and that really if Margaret Thatcher could do it, any of us could do it. And it was only when I started reading about it a bit more and hearing more of this sort of noise and the building across society that I realised that actually it's not currently a level playing field. And this isn't about positive discrimination either. We're not asking for an unfair leg up here. What we are asking is for us all to look at the things that might be unfairly holding us back and asking for changes to be made around that. And I'm going to talk through now briefly some of the proven things, scientifically, academically proven things about what those things are that make it not quite fair for all of us. So the gender pay gap, obviously, we know so far of the companies that have declared, I think everyone's got until the end of April to do this, that the average is about 18% difference between men and women. That doesn't mean it's the same people, men and women doing the same job being paid different amounts necessarily. It doesn't prove that one way or the other, but it does show that overall men are for sure in the more senior positions. So you'll see a company like EasyJet has a 45% gender pay gap, and that's because the pilots who are the most well paid tend to be men, and the air hostesses who are much less well paid tend to be women. So there's variances. But Trinity Mirror, as you may have seen on Monday, comes out at about 18%, so that's where we are. And with the companies that have so far shared their figures, we are average. And the reason this is a problem is because it's been proven, and McKinsey have supported this and some of those really big management consultancy agencies, that it is the companies that are most diverse that are the most commercially successful. And that's why, in addition to just the unfairness of it, it's really critical that businesses take action. So why does this happen? So firstly, unconscious bias, of course, not just a male-female issue. We all carry around these unconscious biases all the time, as Kerry talked about with the bus driver example. But what happens is you tend to identify with people like you, and you're much more likely to see their potential. When it's someone who's not like you, you judge on what they've accomplished, what they've already achieved. You can't see how they might grow in the future. And of course, in terms of the context of this conversation today, because most, or it's more likely that our managers are men, then they're more likely to identify and give the slight, maybe unfair advantage to men, not consciously, but because they can just see the potential more naturally. And this is actually a genetic thing, right? Because we have so many messages all the time, the only way our brains can condense them down is by making these fast decisions. It's our brains blocking out all of this stuff. So it's really hard for us to overcome them unless we're really conscious and really aware of it. Secondly is social conditioning. From a very young age, really, we are started to put into these different stereotypes that we all grow up and the assumptions we make about men and the assumptions that we make about women. And I'll show you a short video that really brings that to life.
This afternoon, we're going to draw people doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter is.
What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary. Firefighter Stan. Firefighter Simon. He's big and strong. He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Next, we're going to draw a surgeon. Have you thought of a name for your surgeon?
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob.
He's a brain surgeon. He gives you medicine.
That's his ambulance. Okay, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane. He rescues people. He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
Okay, now who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah!
My name's Tamsin and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy, I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade.
So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's better not?
Try my stethoscope.
Put this in here. There you go. Now you're a proper fire pilot.
So who's serious? Can you hear that? It's really good. But yeah, it's much better than my kids' one.
So a really great example, and I guess we're all a generation or two ahead of those children, so I'm sure we had even more stereotypes when we were brought up, and I guess it's a reminder that we've all got them really embedded on us about the qualities of men and the qualities of women and the jobs that we're likely to go on to do. This is brilliant. You may have come across this. It's some research that's been done that shows that hurricanes that have got female names cause more deaths than hurricanes that are given male names, even though it's totally not based on how dangerous the hurricane is. And the reason for that, again, it's our unconscious bias kicking in. And we think if it's called like Hurricane Caroline, oh, she can't do any damage, I'm just going to carry on. Whereas if it's called like Hurricane Brian, God, that's out to get me. I'm definitely going to like batten down the hatches. And so literally people dying from this, it's been proven in the stats of the amount of damage caused by hurricanes and also through research separate to that, but really a fascinating thing again about how all of these things we have all the time which are affecting us. And I suppose as we're touching on here, really important, it's not just, this isn't just about men against women. We're all doing it all of the time without realising. And you may have heard this. I'm just going to play you a short clip, but it's worth looking up this as well. It's a really interesting thing about how women are biased against women as well.
That could explain what happened to Catherine Nichols, a writer based in Boston.
I was looking for a literary agent, and the way that's done is you put together a letter that describes your book and the first few pages, and friends who were themselves accomplished writers, were saying, this is good to go, this is good work. And I only got 2 responses from agents asking to see the entire manuscript.
And how many initial letters did you send?
50.
So 2 out of 50 wanted to see the manuscript.
It was really depressing, yeah. It was very dispiriting. And that wasn't even wanting to represent me, that was even wanting to see the manuscript at all. And I just felt like I had run into a wall, like I had nothing to lose by just trying this kind of nutty plan to just try it under a different name.
So she chose a male name and submitted exactly the same novel again as a man. And remember, most of the agents she sent it to were women.
I used the same letter, the same description of the novel, the same opening pages. And even within hours of sending out those letters through email, I was getting manuscript requests. It was shocking how fast it became obvious that there was a big difference.
So did you send 50 of these letters out under the male name?
I did, yeah.
And how many people said they wanted to see the manuscript when you had a male name?
17.
So 17 compared to 2, which suggests that you were 8.5 times better writer under a male name than a female name.
Yeah, I was shocked.
I'm not surprised.
And I'm sure this is the first time Frances Rossi has appeared in a Women's Network presentation. The other thing that we all do is we're used to the status quo, and so there might be a lot less senior female managers, directors, people on our board. We don't tend to see it because we're used to not seeing it. And so just a quick look at how Trinity Mirror stacks up. I'm consciously not falling into the trap of pink for girls and falling into the whole Harriet Harman bust thing. So light blue is women. This is the more junior end of the spectrum, and this is up to Simon here, 100% male. But you can see, that at the senior levels, there's significantly more men. And it happens quite quickly from I don't know exactly how the levels work, but from kind of your second or third promotion in, the balance starts to switch from men to women. And again, it's a reminder, we don't always see that. I sometimes hear comments about there's loads of senior women here. Actually, there's probably 20%, 30%, and of course, in terms of the makeup of the company, it's pretty much 50-50. So again, it's being mindful that we might not always see things as they actually are. The male-female context affects what we think of people. A similar study where the name change was done, in this case it was Heidi and Harold, and sent out to people. And they were, a number of people were asked to talk about what they were like as individuals and whether they'd like to work for them. And the CV was of someone who's entrepreneurial, very successful. And so the people that had the male name on it said, you know, they were go-getting, hungry, assertive. And it was definitely someone that people would like to work for. And when it had a female name on it, people saw it quite differently. They said, actually, this is a bossy woman, she's really difficult, she's a nightmare, oh God, you'd hate to work for her. So again, some of the same behaviours from men and women are perceived differently by us all. And that, again, can change how we can match up versus our male counterparts. So to summarise this section, we tend to employ and promote people like us at Trinity Mirror because that's more likely to be men. Then there's a kind of a slight unfair advantage there. We all stereotype men and women and all other sorts of diversity groups as well. We see more women in senior roles than there really are, and we're all prone to unconscious bias. So that's kind of how it sits. That's how we're performing, or that's the level, the unlevel playing field, I think, that we're all operating in. A few things now about things that tend to affect women more than men. It's not, you know, we're not all the same, of course, but as percentages go, we're more likely to suffer from these things. The first one here is imposter syndrome. I don't know if people have heard of this, but it's that feeling you have when you think you're not quite good enough for the job. I don't really think I should have that. It's sort of a lack of confidence, really. And of course, when you've got that in your head, you're unlikely to be able to perform at your best. And I've got a personal example of this. I'd been working at Trinity Mirror at the time for about 2 months, and I had an email from Simon Fox asking me to go and see him, and I, not making this up, I went, shit, he's going to fire me. I was absolutely sure that was what was going to happen. And I went to see him, and he said, oh, thanks for coming to see me, Zoe, and he was, you know, looking quite serious, and it's a bit of a delicate matter, and I was like, oh my God, here it goes. And And he said, can you help me with a prop for a magic trick I need, please? So I'd clearly gone into this whole other panic about what was about to happen, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. And I guess it's a reminder that we might have that kind of nagging doubt a bit more on our shoulder than men generally might do. This is a thing about kind of being self-deprecating and not good at taking compliments or maybe singing our own praises sometimes. Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, I'm sure lots of you have heard of her. She was in the Forbes top 100 most successful women. And she tells the story about how she was so embarrassed that every time anyone said congratulations, she said, oh, it's a ridiculous list anyway, oh God, you know, all like that. And it was her PA that said to her, you're actually being quite rude. Just say thank you, that's great, and I'm really pleased and privileged to be in that role. And I think that's a lesson as well, that feeling that we're maybe not as good about celebrating our own successes. And I'm going to show a short clip that kind of dramatises that a bit for us.
Oh my God, Brie, you dyed your hair. It looks amazing. Oh no, you're just being nice. No, seriously, it looks great. No, I tried to look like Kate Hudson, but ended up looking like a golden retriever Stingleberry. But you, look at your cute little dress. Little, I'm like a size 100 now. Anyway, it's probably made out of old Burger King crowns. I look like a whore locked out of her apartment. Hi, Amy. Hi. I love your hat. Are you drunk? I look like an Armenian man. Excuse me, when did you start working for NASA? You're weightless. Fuck you, I'm a fucking cow. Any people are trying to work with me. I sleep standing up in a field. It's girls here. Of course, I see everyone when I look like Susan Boyle's toothbrush. You look so pretty. Miss Jessica, congrats on your big promotion, biatch. I'm gonna get fired in like 2 seconds. I'm legally retarded. On my SATs, I just drew a picture of a house on the first page and ate the rest. Lizzie, congratulations! Please, come on, guys. Plot is anybody's guess, and I'm 1,000 years old. I mean, I bet this thing is gonna fall out and be an old cobweb. You are gonna be the best mom ever. I just wanna like crawl in your and have you give birth to me. Shriveled up spaghetti squash. Ugh. Your tits made Katy Perry's look like. Her too. Is that Amanda? Amanda! I love your jacket! Thank you!
And I guess it's just touching back to that first exercise when you had to introduce yourself to someone and say the thing you're proudest of in your working life, to think about how easy you found that to do, and how many people, I wonder, made a bit of a joke about it at the same time. So just going, yeah, this is the best thing about me. And how many people went, oh God, I can't think of anything, I don't know. And well, it's this, but you know, on the other hand, I also do a bit of that. And because that tends to be what happens. And of course, if we're doing it in this situation, it's harder for us in interviews and day to day and all the rest of it to be better at that. And then lastly, perhaps, again, it comes back to how we're brought up, but we tend to be, as girls, told to behave and be good, and therefore, again, we can be a bit more risk averse. This is a brilliant TED talk that's worth looking up if you haven't seen it. But just that idea that, again, to progress and be more senior, often they're looking for people that are happy to take some risks, and being mindful that perhaps we don't always come across or not always as ballsy at some of those things. So that's why I think that the level playing field and this idea that we're just after a bit of a false leg up isn't the case at all. Firstly, we've got all of these perception things about us which are probably or often not at all true and not at all fair reflection on us. And then we've got these sort of things that we might do, different behaviours to men typically, that again might hold us back a bit. And it's not saying there's one way is right or wrong, but I think it's helpful to know some of those things might be more ingrained in us, and doesn't mean we're any less capable of that job, but the way we might be seen to be capable of that job might be affected. And I'm really sorry to the Mirror team and now Lloyd and Alison in the front row. Sorry, it's a Sun story here. Piers Morgan, women are timid. He blames the gender pay gap on women being scared to ask their bosses for salary increases. And he says it's because we're more afraid of rejection. We expect perhaps just to be spotted and think that hard work will pay off, and maybe not as good always as our male counterparts at really putting ourselves forward for those promotions or pay rises. And I'll finish this section with this film, which I think is a reminder and a nice summary of all of that stuff.
Hi, Erin. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Here. Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aww.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So nice to, of course, do a women's event and have at least one sanitary product mentioned as well. Okay, so thank you to everyone who filled in the survey that we sent round in the last couple of weeks. Our Insight team have been analysing data. This is the world premiere of this research, so please bear in mind when you go back to your desks, your line managers, anyone not in this room, not on YouTube, won't have seen this yet, okay? We had over 800 responses, representative across the business, and you know you've got a good response from editorial when lots of the open-end verbatims were pointing out the grammatical, punctuation and spelling mistakes that we had in the questions, so thank you for those comments too. And here's what we found out. Firstly, it's kind of interesting that gender bias and our feelings about that are bubbling under the surface here. So when you start and say how happy are you about your opportunity for advancement at Trinity Mirror, again light blue for women, you can see that it's pretty similar. So it's 40 for men and it's actually higher for women at 46%. So you look at that and you go, great, no problem. But beneath that, when you start kind of asking some more perhaps probing questions, a slightly different picture comes through. So women are fairly represented at a senior level. 23% of men think that they are, sorry, this is unfairly, sorry. So this is the people that disagree with the statement. So you can see women feel that they are not represented at a senior level. And here, when we say I'm paid the same as someone of the opposite gender would be, you can see that it's women who that are disagreeing much more likely. So men think they're paid the same as women, more likely to, whereas women think, 30% of us think that we might be being paid less than a man doing the same job as us. There are different reasons for this, so lack of transparency, women taking time out for their families. This is interesting. So 47% of women think it's women not having the confidence to ask for promotion or pay rise. And here we've got 53% of women thinking it's biased towards favouring men for promotion or higher pay. And that this really affects us at all levels. It's not just a kind of glass ceiling, more senior women thing. From quite early on, we see these quite big differences coming out. So has gender ever held you back? 25% of women at department head level think it has, 27% at manager level, and 30% at specialist level. And at the kind of entry point, people haven't really felt that it's affected them at that point or hasn't affected them yet. And women are more likely to believe that men are more likely to be considered for a promotion. So again, you can see across all levels, and even at the junior end, we kind of feel that men are more likely to be thought about for those bigger jobs. And why do we think that is? So the open ends helped us shed some light really on this. So family, so some of it was women choosing to work less hours or not being able to do flexible working here at Trinity Mirror. Quite a lot of comments though around perception, so feeling that because they'd had children or even might get pregnant in the future, that they were ruled out of being promoted or considered for more senior job. Lots of comments, and I have to say in particular for editorial here, regionally and on the nationals, the sense it's a boys' club, it's an old boys' network, it's a tap on the shoulder for your mate. That came through as one of the reasons. And then a sense that perhaps we're not as confident always to go for it and to really put ourselves forward. So I guess it's saying that some of it's about how we could be more proactive. So those are the main 4 reasons why we think there is this difference happening. And then we asked about how we were made to feel. This is more of a cultural question. How inclusive do we think it is at Trinity Mirror? How much do we feel part of it and equal? And we asked it about how men feel and how women feel about being made to feel uncomfortable by men. So 13% of men have been made to feel uncomfortable by men at some point in their career or at Trinity Mirror, and 34% of women. So a third of us have been made to feel at some point made to feel a bit uncomfortable by men working here. And this then, I guess, is the real thing that we're trying to tackle here, which is that men don't see it as much as we see it, and they think it's less of a priority than we do. So you've got less than half of men think it's something that's quite important for Trinity Mirror to tackle, so 42% there. But for women, it's 66%. And when you think that the men in more senior positions is more men, then you can see this is quite a thing for us to overcome. We need to, together, really convince and persuade our male managers and more senior men to really think about this a bit more and to share, as Alison touched on at the start, the feeling that perhaps it's not that level playing field that they believe it to be here. So I guess the final part of this session is to really start thinking about what we can do about this, how we can take advantage of this moment that we have and this rising noise across society to make some real differences and to change it not only for ourselves but for those women that come up behind us here at Trinity Mirror. I'm really pleased that Simon and various other senior people have contributed to this and have put their words on paper so that we can really ask them to be seen to champion this across all levels of the business. And here's what Simon said this week. The publication of our gender pay gap on Monday and International Women's Day today are both important reminders that we at Trinity Mirror need to do more to ensure that we are treating everybody in our organisation in a wholly fair, transparent and unbiased way. It is self-evidently the right thing to do, and no other behaviour is acceptable. I am very pleased to see the launch of the Women's Network and look forward to working with them to address the imbalances that exist. So Simon's helped put this group together, and as you can see has said that really we do need to change, and that the gender pay gap has shone a light on that for us at Trinity Mirror, and we need to start making some changes to really make sure this time next year some of this has really moved on. HR have done a lot of work looking at some of the analysis and details behind what's happening here. Peakon is one thing that they're tracking, as you know. They have introduced formal leaving interviews to see the differences, different reasons that different genders might be leaving Trinity Mirror. They're monitoring our external advertising, seeing what happens when people apply and how they go through when there's a job vacancy here. And they're reporting back on that now quarterly to the exec and to the board of Trinity Mirror. And then from a talent perspective, in Q2, they'll be identifying key talent across Trinity Mirror, and then really making sure that those people that have been identified as having potential are much more likely to get the internal roles that come up. So making sure that there's really a good look at the people that apply and the people that are successful in those job roles. And from level 4, which is a manager-ish level, to make sure that the candidate slates are balanced 50-50. So not an unfair advantage, just making sure that men and women are considered for those roles where those vacancies exist. And worth saying in particular, there were comments about the sports desk, politics and product, our kind of product team here being particularly underrepresented by women in those groups. So what I'd like us to do now is spend 5 minutes in the semicircles of your chairs, and if you could gather at the sides, and really think about the one thing that you think is most important for this network to think about and to tackle on behalf of all of us as part of this initiative for change. So we're going to hand out some of the ideas that came through the survey for you to have a look at, and if you can work, as I say, in the groups that you're with, and you've got a think cloud to write down the one thing that you'd like us to do. We'll collect those in at the end. But this is also a chance, if you haven't yet used Slido, to put a comment up there or put the priority that you'd like so that we can all see across Trinity Mirror what we're all thinking we should be really focusing on. this, and can you put your answer onto the Slido thing so everyone can see what you've got? 2 minutes, and put it on the Slido app, please. As a question in the Slido app. It's 8100. Thank you. Could you please write your idea in the Slido? It's 8100 if you haven't been in. It will say question. Can you put your idea in there so that everyone who's watching, we've had 130 people at some points watching on YouTube, and we know there's upwards of 10, 20 people in lots of those offices. So I reckon we've probably had 300 of us joining this session today at least, so that's brilliant. So thank you, everyone. So can you please make sure you put those in so that we can capture everyone's ideas? It's hard for us to have a discussion about them today because we're all in different centres, but I guess to finish, this Slido thing will be open today, so anything that you haven't had chance to say, please say it here. The important thing is that Alison, myself and Kerry are just here to get this going and to find out the vibe of what we want, and so it's really important that you feed into that and that we can then represent all of us and, as I said, to try and make some of these changes. If you've been following on Slido, you'll see I think there's a very polite bollocking possibly for Alison and Alison for describing themselves as lucky rather than owning their success and being proud of their talent, which is what's really got them to the positions they're in. So I think that's really good for us all as well, not to watch out for each other when we might be falling into some of those things and languages without all wanting to walk around really big-headed and be really annoying. But I think that's helpful feedback. They're both looking a bit sheepish now if you can't see them here. So please do that, interact into that. There's a question that's on Slido that we haven't covered about sexual harassment, so we'll look at that maybe for the next session, if there's other, for sure for the next session. And if there's other things, please, as I say, put them on there and we'll make sure we come back and feed that upwards and into, as we said, we're working with HR on this as well. And I guess kind of to finish, as I said at the start, I think today hopefully is the start of this. Let's use this moment and the fact we've all come together today to really get some momentum going now. Please keep engaging with us when we send out the emails. We'll try not to spam, but we really value the replies. I promise we're reading all of them. We went through every single verbatim on the survey that was sent through, and thank you for those that took the time to write 2 or 3 sentences to really explain how you felt. I promise you that you are being listened to, that Simon Fox from the very top and Lloyd's here today, and you'll have seen other senior managers asking how it's going and being supportive of us as well. And I think the other thing I want to say is sometimes it can feel a bit awkward and you can feel like you're accusing people of being sexist. And I think that for us, the big thing is just changing that mindset. Let's be a bit more confident to call it out when we see it and to support each other and to point out when we're maybe not celebrating ourselves as much as we can, and that's part of us as a network coming together. And any other comments, then the 4 of us will be here afterwards. Please come and talk to us. We'd love to hear what you thought of today and other things you'd like us to do. And I'm going to finish with one last video. I'm sorry, I know that the sound's not great for people watching across, but find it on YouTube. It's a Super Bowl advert, but I think it shows that when big brands are really getting behind this issue as well, it's only a matter of time before there really is the change that we're all hopefully after here today.
Do I tell my daughter? Do I tell her that her grandpa's worth more than her grandma? That her dad is worth more than her mom? Do I tell her that despite her education, her drive, her skills, her intelligence, she will automatically be valued as less than every man she ever meets? Or maybe I'll be able to tell her something different.
So thank you very much, and we look forward to the next event that we have.